Welcome back, everybody. Today I've got a really awesome quad for you. The XK X251 Whirlwind. This is a small brushless quadcopter. You might be able to see on here, I don't know if I'll be able to make it out or not, but it's got these small XK brand brushless motors on it. They are actually 1307 3000 kV, so these suckers really spin. And this is just a powerful little quadcopter. It's got these carbon fiber arms on it that are really strong, so very good crash resistant. Just a neat little design. It says the Whirlwind across the top. It's got the landing gear is kind of the only flimsy thing I could find on it is this plastic landing gear. I think some of the earlier models had a carbon fiber landing legs, but the one I received, this newer one, does not. It's got LEDs on the bottom, green in the front and red in the back. A little opposite, a lot of the Chinese quads have red in the front, green in the back, but they're really bright and easy to see during the day, which is really useful for a quad of this size, and it looks really cool if you fly it at night. It also has a LED in the rear, in the tail here, and this is will be green whenever you bind it, and if you're in the fully stabilized mode. If you go to the acro mode, which has no stabilization, that's going to go red. And then if it says in the instructions, if you lose bind, it's going to be yellow, but not so sure how useful it is unless it's on the ground, because if you're in the air and you lose bind, well, it's going to crash and fall to the ground. You're not going to really care about what the LED says, but just a cool little quad and just tons of power and really fast. The battery that comes with it is a 7.4 volt 950 milliamp per hour 25C. This is a 2S LiPo. It only has a balance plug. It does not, lots of these would have like a JST plug or something, so unfortunately you can't use this easily, at least without some modifications, on like an aftermarket hobby grade charger. So you got to use the supplied charger that comes with it, which is just use it has a little balance port plug here. It comes on green for the power. The light comes on solid red, and then it goes off whenever it's fully charged. Instruction says that it'll blink and go off, but instructions are not very good. I'll probably touch on that again later, but that's probably one of the weak spots it does is the instructions, but you can make out enough to know what you're doing. It comes with 4 extra props, which you'd expect. It comes with a screwdriver and an Allen wrench in here somewhere down here in the bottom, and that's for tightening these spinners on top, the nuts or the spinners, depending on what you want to call it. You just put it in there and you twist it to turn it, and it's a good idea to tighten all these out of the box just to make sure there's not any play in these, because some people have said that they're the hubs are broken or flown off. So it's a good idea just to make sure they're secure. Mine had a little bit of tightening on each one, not much, but it's a good idea because this has a lot of power. It weighs 202 grams on my scale. The box says 199 grams, so I was right on. My scale's real close. But the good thing about that is in the United States, that's under the 250 gram FAA registration limits. You do not have to put your registration number on here when you fly it, so that's always a bonus. And if you don't have a registration number, then you don't have to worry about it. The battery slides in right into this little bay here, and the balance plug plugs right into the bottom, and you just have to line it up there and plug it right in. You can see it beeps, turns on. There's no on and off switch, so that's one of the other negatives. There's not many negatives with this quad. Basically, the instruction manual, the lack of an on and off switch, and the fact that the battery doesn't have a secondary connector for using a hobby grade charger. Because the charge time on this is like, I haven't got an exact charge time because I really have to watch that until the light goes out. But it was a couple of hours to get this charged up. But the bonus is the flight time is impressive. I mean, I was blown away by the flight time. The instruction manual says 10 to 12 minutes, and I was getting 15 minutes consistently. Now I'm only flying in full stabilized mode. If you're doing more acrobatic stunts and fast flying around, then of course I think you're going to see shorter flight times. Let's go ahead and look over the controller here. The controller is another thing. For this price range, this quad I think was $90 last I checked at GEARBEST, who supplied me with this sample. This controller is just amazing. It uses 6 AA's, but it is like a hobby grade, something you expect on a high-end, really expensive model. I mean, it uses the Futaba's FHSS protocol, so it's got crazy range. So you're not going to fly this thing out of range. You're going to lose it line of sight before you're going to fly out of range, because it's just got incredible range. It's just a small quad. You're not going to fly it far unless you added FPV to it, or which is like the X252 model has FPV, and you probably could fly well beyond the FPV on these. It could even transmit. Anyway, the trim buttons all function on it. On the top left here, the instruction manual does not say what this does, and I was a little confused at first, but this is actually something that allows you to program your throttle curves, because there's a lot of advanced program features in this controller, which is really cool. But if you're kind of a beginner or someone who's not real familiar, you don't want to get in here and mess with too much, because there's some advanced features in here. This switch here is going to allow you to switch between your fully stabilized, what they call the 6G or 6-axis stabilization, and then down is going to be your acro mode, or acrobatic, 3-axis, they call it the 3D mode, and that's going to have no stabilization. So when it's all the way up, your quad is going to, it's always going to level itself again. So when you're flying, you let up, it's going to level. And that's obviously a much easier way to fly. Some people like, if the switch down, then you have no stabilization. So you can just push it forward and it's going to do a complete flip. So it's really cool, fun way of flying if you're familiar. This is the first quad I've owned that has acro, so aside from the one time that I did it by accident, which did a flip and came right back up and away I went, it's just I'm not familiar enough with flying that way or comfortable enough that I'm going to be using that in the flight video. But it is a cool feature to have, and something you can work towards later on as you get more experience. This right button here is your rate switch. Up is your low rates, down is your high rates. In the menu of this controller, you can go and set these rates. I've got it at 100% throttle all the way up, which is a slower rate, and I got it down at 125%. I don't recall what it was out of the factory. Maybe been 75 up, 100 down, but you get the extra 25% throttle. Not only is it a little faster, but the people that use acro mode is really going to allow you to do your flips and rolls and recover a little easier, because at 100% it's not quite as able, I guess you could say, at recovering, especially if you're close to the ground, because it could be pretty easy to crash. And this top right switch here is really important, because when you plug this in, it does not it binds, it does not arm and spin, but as soon as you touch the throttle, it's going to spin up the props. So because these are brushless, it's obviously pretty dangerous. You could cut yourself pretty easily. So if you just flip this, as soon as you bind it, it auto binds. You don't have to do any binding procedure. As soon as you turn it on and it binds, the rear light goes green. Then you always flip the switch forward, and that locks the motors. So you can't spin them up, and then when you get ready to fly, just flip it forward, and away you go. So pretty cool. Now on the red button on the front, that is for the if you add a camera to the bottom, or if, the 252 version, that allows you to start filming, and I suppose to take pictures. I'm not sure about that, but certainly it allows you to start recording to the SD card. On the bottom of the quad, there is a little port here, if we can see it, that allows you to add the camera right in there and plugs in. I know a lot of aftermarket Tarantula, different kind of little cameras, we use that plug, and it does function with this. So if you have one of those cameras, you can add it, and then you could record, or if you have one that it has the FPV transmitter on, then you can fly at FPV, which something like this would be cool to fly FPV. Of course, you could fly a lot farther because you got to keep it relatively close to you because of its small size. To do a gyro calibration, you know, like, whenever you take off, mine was fine, but I went ahead and did one just to be safe. You know, later on after I crashed it one time, when I was flying, I cut the throttle because I didn't want to hit a house, and it fell into the dirt, and it was perfectly fine. But I went ahead and did a gyro calibration. That's where you're going to pull your sticks down and out, and the lights will all blink, and then they'll go solid. You know it's completed. It also mentions in the instruction manual something called a 6G, if I could find it here, a 6G hovering setting. And I think that's kind of like what some of the quadcopters, like the ones that use 3DRs, Mission Planner, and that have something called an auto trim. And I think what that does is, if it's drifting on you some, you can do this 6G setting, and you take it up and you pull the sticks down, and you land it and you pull the sticks down. I've not done it, but it tells you the instructions, and that will help to keep it from drifting. So just thought I'd mention it, but I don't really know the exact controls here because the instructions are so poor. It's just difficult, you know, you have to once look at the pictures here. It's just difficult at times to make out the English. It talks about the 4-square navigation LED and just uses some odd Chinese to English interpretations. So this is one of the poorer instruction manuals I've seen. This is the first XK product I've owned. I know they make great hobby grade style quadcopters that are super popular. But I don't know if that's common or not because instructions are not very good. So I think that's kind of covered a lot of it there. Just kind of looking at my notes to make sure there's nothing that I missed. You know, I guess we could turn on the transmitter and show you the LCD screen if that'll show up in the video. And there's all this, you know, the mode 2 and the battery, and I got the trim adjusted a little bit. You get into that by holding the mode down, and it blinks, and you can get into your settings, and you can go through this here, this dial, and press it, and that selects it, and then the back button to back out. So, a beautiful big LCD screen. This is just an awesome transmitter. I can't rave enough about it for something that costs, you know, $90 right at the moment. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it all. So let's go ahead and take it out for the flight review. The test flight now of the XK X251 Whirlwind. Alright, let's go ahead and get it plugged in here. It does not have an on and off switch, so you got to plug it in. Hopefully, I don't know if you can see this while I'm doing it because I'm holding the control. Let me set the controller down. We're going to plug it in here. It just has the balance support on the battery. Go ahead and plug it in. We'll see it lights up there in the back. Turn on the controller, and if the switches are all forward, it should bind. Let's see if the props spin, and they do. So I'm going to fly it in fully stabilized mode. I'm not going to fly in acro. I don't have any experience in acro. I flew it the other day and accidentally switched to it and did a flip by accident, and I had no problems. But it was totally accidental. So I'm going to fly it and stabilize until I am comfortable moving on to acro mode. I'm going to also start in low rate here. This is between low and high. I do have high set at 125%, so we should see even better throttle and acceleration today than my previous test flights. So we see the full potential. And this is the throttle lock. So if it's up forward and you move it, we'll look down there. You can see it doesn't do anything. So that's your safety procedure. So that's a good thing to have on after you plug in if you're going to carry it around, so you don't chop up your hands by bumping. It's easy to bump the throttle, especially with these little spikes, you know, on your shirt or something, and then you could butcher your hands up pretty good. So let's go ahead and unlock it, and the blades are ready to go. All right, and let's take it up. Like I said, this is low rate. You can see here it still has, you know, a decent amount of pitch, but it's not super sporty and low. And you can adjust this and the menus on the controller, so you can adjust this and make it really slow if you want to. There's a throttle curve switch on the top that the instructions doesn't really specify anything about. You can use that to adjust the throttle curves and stuff. There's a lot of advanced features, but I'm just going to kind of stick with the basics here and just have it bumped up to 125% throttle. So let's go ahead and now and take it up to the higher rate. You see it's a lot more pitch. The yaw increases just a little bit whenever you switch to the higher rate. There's the yaw, not too bad. Might be nice if it's a little bit quicker, but with something this small, the really fast yaw, you could easily lose your orientation very far away. So I think it's just about right. Like I said, a little faster probably wouldn't hurt. You go down to we're now back to the low rate. The yaw, it's a little bit slower there. It's hard to see. I'm getting blown around a little bit here in the wind. There's the expert. It's a little bit faster, but not a lot difference. Let's go ahead and test a punch now. You see, that's awesome. I love that. It has got a ton of acceleration. Let's do that again. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And it's like a rocket. These little brushless motors. And I'm getting a ton of flight time, like 15 minutes flight time with this thing, which is just crazy. Now that was on 100% throttle. At 125, I'm thinking I'll get a little less flight time, but you really can't ask for better flight time than that for something, under $100 right now. Brushless motors, I mean, that's just crazy. Probably getting some glare there in the sun, so let's turn around this way so we can see. Let's bring it down. Let's kind of look at the pitch again too. You see it's got quite a bit of pitch. What you want, especially fighting, I got a pretty good breeze at my back right now. And I noticed when I was in low rate, the pitch wasn't as much, and so bringing it back to me in the wind, it did have to fight it a little bit. But these brushless motors are powerful, and it still made it back. But if you're going to be flying in any kind of wind, you probably want this in expert rate, the high rate, so you can fight that wind. I've only crashed this one time yesterday. Just kind of killed the throttle because I got a little disoriented, because it's so small, and it landed upside down in some dirt, and there was zero problems. So it's a rugged little quadcopter too, with the carbon fiber arms. The landing gear is just plastic, so I think that'd probably be the first thing to break. But it's just really rugged, and it's quiet too. I mean, I can talk right over this, and not like those big noisy brushed quads. Let's do a little bit more flight here. Bring it back. It is fast. I don't know how fast it is. I've heard some people say like 50 miles an hour. It might be, especially if you're not flying into wind, but it is very sporty. It's not a racer. It's not going to fly as fast as a racer, but it's about the closest thing you're going to get, especially at a sub $100 right now at GEARBEST. You're not going to find something as faster than this. It is awesome. Let's do another punch. Let's take it out a little bit in case I was too close there to doing that. Let's do a punch again. It is like a rocket. Alright, well I think that pretty much covers all the basics there. The next thing I'd probably do is do some practice in acro mode, where I can do some flips and rolls. But that's not something I'm real comfortable with yet, and I don't want to crash this thing. I just got it the other day. So let's go ahead and we'll end this one, and I'll hopefully come back with another review of this in the future, and doing some acros after I'm a little more comfortable with that. So I'm going to lock the props. Now I can pick this up and I'm safe. I'm not going to hurt myself. So that should pretty much wrap it up. So thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe.